Hello, I'm the Deer Runner, and in this analysis video, I'll be continuing my chronological look at My Hero Academia for anything relevant to Deku's original information gathering Quirk. Which superpowers in the world are called Quirks? This Quirk is a hidden power that interprets Deku's desires, then scans to know how it should mentally and physically manipulate Deku to make Deku do exactly what he needs to do to fulfill that interpreted desire. Plus has a lot of issues. In the last video, I did say I'd be able to make a video to cover up to the summer training camp attack, but due to I missed a lot, the video length exploded, so I split the video up, and since I have had a lot of serious problems on my end, plus now I have a new series in the works, I couldn't help but have this video delayed. This will contain spoilers for the My Hero Academia series. This is your final spoiler warning. The next event, the mall hostage situation. In this one, Deku was not at all suspecting he was in danger. Therefore, his Quirk was on standby mode, not scanning for danger, which is done to not strain Deku's mind till a desire of Deku's activates it. So Shigaraki easily walked right up to Deku, taking him hostage. I do not believe the large amount of people in the crowded mall was a factor, though would be expected to disrupt scanning if Deku's original Quirk tried looking for danger, but didn't since it was off. After that, Shigaraki had completely restrained Deku's original Quirk, as all Shigaraki needed to do was move his finger from the hand around Deku's neck to Deku's neck to kill Deku instantly, and Shigaraki would easily slaughter the many people in the crowded mall before they could defeat him if Deku somehow managed to attack him. So clearly Deku's original Quirk had no options, so wouldn't do anything, with also no conflicting desires coming from Deku, as one of the first things Shigaraki said was things I just mentioned.
Don't make a scene. I think we should have a conversation is all. If you try to run or fight me in any way, your throat will be the first thing that disintegrates.
If you do that here, you couldn't escape.
After you, I could kill 20.
Which Deku's original Quirk not doing anything can be shown as when Shigaraki increases grip strength, choking Deku, Deku slowly reaches his hand up, touching Shigaraki's hand, a very dangerous move that could have killed Deku. Which, if it was Deku's original Quirk, it either would not have done that, or committed to a very fast movement, so it had to be a panic response from Deku, so since it was allowed, Deku's original Quirk was not planning anything. The situation went on for a while, but eventually Shigaraki let Deku go, then left. But since coincidences don't just happen, there had to be a reason why Shigaraki accidentally found Deku, as Shigaraki was not expecting Deku to be there, while also Deku's original Quirk, the usual manipulator, was not active. This event was extremely beneficial to Shigaraki, as all the failures, personal issues, and reputation all damage that happened, he needed guidance to fix the situation, which Shigaraki the entire time was asking questions that'd be beneficial to him, clearly making him a much better villain by basically identifying what his own convictions are and how he should act as a villain, which greatly improved Shigaraki's reputation. He applied what he learned from the situation, which with how awful one is Shigaraki's teacher, while having all the resources from his powerful criminal organization that can track Deku going to a public mall, so had probably arranged this as it worked out so well. Since Shigaraki's reputation was already damaged, and it'd be more impressive if Shigaraki shows he improved on his own, All For One would probably not admit to anyone that he did that to get Shigaraki a desperately needed reputation boost, which according to my future Deku narration theory, rules which states the story is a retelling of events by future Deku, which states if future Deku doesn't know for sure what happened, it would be left out. So since future Deku wouldn't know this info, as All For One would never admit it to anyone, it wasn't shown. Though since we were able to piece it together with future Deku's retelling of the story, future Deku probably suspects it happened, but is not sure it happened. But there was another section of the story removed. At the end of the hostage situation, Deku made a massive mistake by basically stating All For One is in control of the League of Villains in front of Uraraka as Deku tried to ask his own question to Shigaraki.
Hold on! Shigaraki! I have a question too. What is All For One after?
Who knows, really?
Which everything about All For One is heavily classified, with society never wanting the world to ever remember that godlike villain and the world's greatest criminal organization he created, which they successfully reduced him to be considered a mere urban legend. So when Deku demonstrated he knew about All For One to the villains, led by All For One in front of an unrelated bystander, Uraraka, Deku set into motion very complicated events that he shouldn't have. Clearly with that action, Deku just made himself a priority target, as he proves to All For One that he is the next wielder of One For All, if they haven't figured it out already. As a kid getting similar powers to All Might, knowing the secrets of All For One can only mean that child is the inheritor of One For All power, the only power that can beat him. So it would make Deku a priority target to be destroyed.
The next time we meet, I'll likely have to kill you.
But also Deku made Uraraka a target, as that villains would wonder why Deku just said it right in front of Uraraka, which Uraraka, being one of Deku's loyalist allies, should make them extremely interested in Uraraka. But since that is Shigaraki who saw this and isn't that smart of a villain, he may not realize anything was noteworthy about Uraraka being there when Deku said that. But the villains aren't the only major issue Uraraka will face. With Uraraka hearing that, society also became a threat to her, as she would tell others what she heard with how All For One is attacking her school, trying to kill her underage classmates, which is very extreme. Which, unless society does a cover-up, she will tell people, which how brutal the attackers must have been to erase the greatest criminal organization with the evil godlike leader All For One from the history books. She at this point would be dealt with immediately, and would make sure, no matter what, she will never tell anyone of what she heard that day. Which, as time went by, Uraraka doesn't say what she knows, even when later on, All For One reveals himself to the world, calling himself All For One. Which, if she told people, she'd learned if from Deku he'd be under heavy scrutiny, something society wouldn't want. So they did silence her. But with how society would have immediately made the move, and it wasn't shown in the story, this is again another case of future Deku not knowing what happened. But he should suspect it to happen and would tell us whatever he knows through the story we see. So now we once again closely look to get the hidden story. First, we would factor in Deku's original Quirk being tested by Hero Society, as shown in my part 6 of the series. This is during Grand Arena's on behalf of Society higher-ups test of Deku's original Quirk. They showed they were worried enough to test for safety issues, then were not able to follow through with more tests to get an understanding of it. So they wouldn't risk Uraraka being uncooperative, wanting to alert her fellow students, leading to them threatening her in range of Deku's original Quirk. Which, since Deku clearly loves Uraraka, hormones would have Deku's original Quirk randomly activate to protect her, and since she was just recently in a lot of danger in front of Deku, it makes a possibility if they become a threat to Uraraka while in scanning range of Deku's original Quirk, there'll be a strong chance Deku's original Quirk would manipulate Deku to find out and attack. So while we saw when Deku was sent to the police station to be questioned, we didn't see Uraraka anywhere, who also was a direct witness, so she was sent elsewhere before they started to show any signs they were a threat. Now, I looked for how they got her to keep her mouth shut. I found strong evidence this was done through bribes and furthering her career by recruiting her into Society's secret operations. For the bribes, we can see that her family has a financially struggling construction business, which society could easily just send contracts to them. Over time, funneling in money disguised as business picking up, with no way anyone would find it suspicious, getting them out of financial trouble.
What made you want to be a pro hero? For the money?
My family owns a construction company, but we haven't gotten any work lately, so we're flat broke.
We look at how the story skips over all the other students' families' details if they are not important, as only Ida's brother, who was important in the stain incident, and Todoroki's father, Endeavor, who is highly impactful to the story, was shown in detail, while everyone else's family didn't play a big role. So far as therefore why the details about them was skipped over. So there had to be a reason why Uraraka's family business financial problems were so heavily focused on, which can be explained with this bribery theory. Now, we're going to look for signs they recruited Uraraka, though I try not to use future events for this chronological analysis of the series on my channel. I think for this case it'd be best to cover a couple of seasons out on signs of Uraraka being recruited to get a clear picture of what is happening. We can see a major incident happens in season 4, which society brings in a lot of heroes, secretly to deal with it, but for some reason, we see Uraraka was for some reason chosen, which, with how they were clearly at the time, attempting to rescue the girl Eri, who had shown to have demonstrated her powers can reshape hero society alone by the information they found about her. Clearly, they as a precaution for this mission heavily classified it, greatly limiting who they bring, which they brought in Uraraka, which they lied about how they wanted to bring in the hero she was in a work study under, but they were actually only interested in bringing Uraraka to work on making sure Uraraka would become and remain loyal by having her work through them helping society in important missions, showing Uraraka the value of being loyal to them, which with how Uraraka never admitted this to anyone shows she probably has become completely loyal. Deku really had messed up, setting into motion events he had no right to, but he is a kid working with not a full brain as his multi-personality original Quirk was off, not doing anything, so mistakes can be expected to happen. Which this isn't the first time he said critical information to someone he shouldn't have, which before it was Bakugo who had later on figured out Deku has one for all because of that, which is one of the most closely guarded secrets, which they may have figured out it was due to Deku's original Quirk, forcing Deku to leak world-endangering information to make friends due to he was lonely, going to a new school which was covered in part 3. So that explains why they are keeping Deku separate from Uraraka, as clearly there was enough evidence Deku is not able to be trusted to hold on to secrets, therefore it should be kept separate from the other recruits' business, as much as reasonably possible. It is a lot to ask such a young innocent girl to keep all those secrets away from the one she basically loves, which Deku is around her throughout the school day, and to hold on to all those types of secrets, which since they can't just bring someone from the outside to always be someone this young girl can go to for support through the long school days she is around Deku, they would be motivated to find someone who has full access to be there for her during those stressful times, which I have identified that the person they chose was actually the student directly in the same class, Froppy. I figured out Froppy was being recruited through the fact Uraraka's work study had Froppy part of the same work study, which are long-term under highly reputable hero organizations that usually are very impactful to the students' careers. So society would of course make Uraraka be placed in one set up to train these young recruits, Therefore, anyone else in that work-study is getting recruited, which Froppy is there. Also, when we are introduced to the work-study Froppy and Uraraka are part of, there are major discrepancies that we can observe in their first conversation. To show what I said is actually happening, after they have fought a villain group in Season 4, winning, the pro-hero Ryuko, who is in charge of that work-study, stated Nejire the third year she brought into her work-study, well before Froppy and Uraraka, recommended both of them, which seems to be the only official publicly stated reason they got into that work-study.
Nejire would never have recommended you if you couldn't get the job done.
I need to explain an important detail about Nejire for the ones who don't know much about her. She basically is an idiot. With how little contact she has with ones from a different class, it'd be very unlikely for her to recommend them into the work study with the large amount of people she showed interest in which she becomes interested very quickly in basically everything. So I don't see how she would realistically single out Uraraka and Froppy, but if it is a lie, which it probably is, it'd be a believable lie that looked good enough on paper with how they go to the same school, which doesn't demonstrate it has a major amount of surveillance. And the principal, who is in league with the society higher-ups, can adjust the surveillance, which all can easily make it no one can disprove they were hanging out, to not bring any level of suspicion to what that work study truly is, which they could easily have also arranged them to publicly getting seen together as well. We can see by Nejire's response to that lie she was struggling to act properly. You can see only Ryuko had stated Nejire recommended them.
Nejire would never have recommended you if you couldn't get the job done.
Which if it was Nejire, I'm pretty sure she'd be jumping all over the topic. But instead, she jumps all over the topics covered in what would be expected to be a large amount of coaching for the lie. So she started blurting out random facts she would be expected to be told during the coaching if there was one.
Good thing. You couldn't work for the same heroes you interned with. Apparently, first years can only go to agencies that have good work-study track records.
Which for Froppy and Uraraka, knowing it was a lie, went along with it and both thanked them as they would be expected to do so, keeping up the act. After that, Ryuko stated there would be a mission, which Uraraka asked a question vaguely about what the mission is, which Ryuko told them only what she wanted them to know. Which as secret agents, they understand the guarding of information, keeping it to only the ones that need to know.
You've already proved yourselves to be valuable assets. We may even have a role for you in a new case that's come up.
Really? What case?
Night Eye has issued a request to team up.
Night Eye Agency's where Deku went for his work study.
When Ryuko stated Night Eye Agency wanted to team up with them, Uraraka responded immediately that Deku is working at that agency, which Deku is a major issue for Uraraka and Froppy. So once they hear Deku would be involved in one of their missions, they should be expected to ask for details on how they should interact with Deku. But Ryuko didn't give Uraraka information at that point, ignoring Uraraka's statement. Due to Nejire was there as the secrets around Deku are extremely world endangering, so by a clear policy-wise would attempt to keep Nejire completely in the dark, if at all possible. Which Uraraka, being so stressed from such a subject, asked in a reaction response, not thinking about the bad timing, but then didn't follow up due to she realized her mistake. But Froppy basically asked for significant details, asking who they are targeting, which Ryuko got extremely agitated by that.
What case does he want us to team up on?
Showing Froppy made a mistake, attempting to get information that if it got leaked, could tip off the villains, instead of accepting what she was given, so it agitates Ryuko. After that, Ryuko let them know the details as that would have low risk to get leaked to the villains they are after, with how those three are loyal, but Ryuko will probably plan to use the fact that information was dangerous to be an example later on in regard to lessons of handling information properly. We can see that Uraraka, Froppy, and Nejire were all told who they were targeting, but it's clear when the briefing would occur, they acted like they didn't know what was going on, and clearly, if you look at their facial expressions, they were struggling to hold back a lot about what they know, showing a significant level of distress, especially Nejire.
I know you said there's a meeting, but what's it about?
Which, since all of them were stressed out, Ryuko probably did some severe lessons for all three of them in regard to handling information, as basically all three of them were either struggling a lot or failing to keep information hidden. A short time ago during the conversation I covered. I know for the ones who know Nejire, it is a little strange she'd be allowed into society's secret operations. But since Millennium was being set up to receive One for All, and he's part of the famous top 3 of UA, which are the 3 best and highly renowned third-year students who are close friends, clearly society would be interested to, as they did for Uraraka, have people that Millennium is close to be there for him through the process, which they chose only Nejire, as clearly she can be trained and is very clingy to her friends, so easily can be made loyal, despite her mental deficiencies. But Amajiki is an extremely nervous introvert, not wanting to get involved with anyone. So no way to bring him in with how they have to eventually ask him to do big things, and trust them, which due to his mental state he can't. So was not brought in, letting him go to a random agency for work study. There was another bit of hidden information revealed with Nejire during the clip she was asking Class 1A so many questions. Since she is not smart, how did she know the real names of Todoroki, Asui, Mineta, and Ashido, which she does not state the name of Choji, showing there probably was a difference between them.
Why are you wearing a mask? And you must be Todoroki, am I right? Ashido, Mineta, oh, Asui.
Clearly, trusted secret agents inside UA High should be expected to eventually interact massively important Class 1A, so we should expect Nejire to have been briefed about people in a mission she needs to know about in Class 1A, which with how she basically freely interacts with things that interest her, and Nejire immediately saying their names as well, which is information she shouldn't have if this wasn't the case, means she probably was taking a look at all the people that she was told are important. I do want to point out that Deku did not stand out to her, so this shows, as shown before, they are keeping Nejire in the dark about Deku. Now the thing I am going to do to figure this out is to first narrow the list, as I can remove 2 of them. Normally a person who is wearing such a blatant mask, the kind Choji was wearing, would catch the attention of someone. I can also remove Todoroki, as we can hear Nejire when talking about Todoroki, she basically said, "Oh, you must be that person I heard about."
And you must be Todoroki, am I right?
So does show less familiarity than Asui, Ashido, and Mineta she flat out said the names of, which since Nejire wasn't as familiar with Todoroki means she probably heard about him, being the son of the second greatest hero, Endeavor, instead of being required to learn about him for her missions. I did find in Part 7, there were signs they were interested in recruiting Todoroki, but this situation indicates what I expected to happen, which is that Todoroki's massive connections made it too complicated to approach him, which at the time that indications of them wanting him happened, Todoroki had been pushing to separate himself from Endeavor. Therefore, all those complicated connections as well. So they were probably waiting till Todoroki severed all ties to finally approach him, but he went back to Endeavor, so they gave up a long while ago, before Nejire would be briefed on the names of the important Class 1A students. Mineta is a sexually harassing pervert that is a clear problem of beautiful secret agents such as Nejire should know about to avoid problems when interacting with Class 1A. And clearly Froppy seems to be a secret agent. But Ashido will need me to bring another point, which if we go through the entire list of Class 1A students society could choose from to be there for Uraraka, we can find Ashido was by far the best backup option if Froppy did not work out. Which Froppy actually was by far the best choice in every way if there was no direct attempts to recruit any of the Class 1A students. First off, Deku is in love with Uraraka, therefore would activate his original quirk in regards to this randomly. So they don't want a male to be with this heterosexual girl, Uraraka, being someone she heavily relies on creating love, which would cause Deku's original quirk to scan this and then respond predictably in a dangerous way. So they chose from the girls, looking at each one to see how they would be a bad choice compared to Froppy. Yarosa is a rich girl, so way too many connections to safely communicate with. Jack and Invisible Girl intel gathering abilities would be a nightmare to deal with, trying to not have them learn too much. Which does show why Nejire didn't know the name of Shoji, as he also has a powerful information gathering quirk ability, so it would be a nightmare to recruit as he can easily learn too much. So society higher-ups are avoiding the intel gatherers in Class 1A, which with how they be around the ones that know the world endangering information, the godlike superpower one for all can be transferred, I can suspect society will avoid recruiting intel gatherers in UA High like the plague, if at all possible, to avoid disaster. Ashido had shown she is performing extremely badly on school tests, being second from last on test scores and then failed the final exam that was trying to help her overcome that problem, therefore has on paper demonstrated extreme unreliability. But clearly Ashido was a feasible option, which is why I stated Ashido was a by far best backup option, leaving Froppy, a smart, extremely good hero that has the prerequisite of being a girl. With society higher-ups making Nejire memorize Ashido's name, this shows they would have done many other things besides that to test and prep Ashido for recruitment. But I don't see signs at that point in time in the story if this got any further than that, as this is a chronological analysis of the series, which I haven't gotten that far into the series, but I'll keep an eye out on Ashido to catch a first sign this went further than that in case it happens. We look at Froppy's past to see Froppy started the process of getting recruited during the past naval internship, which a Coast Guard called him in, which I found the situation was actually a heavily classified, very serious situation for society higher-ups, which Froppy was one of the main reasons they managed to win, facing varying large amounts of situations during this, performing extremely well, unknowingly getting considered to be part of society's secret operations. I'll now go through the event to show what is actually happening. First, a report came in saying there were stowaways on the ship, which a Coast Guard got to the ship, but the stowaways left before the Coast Guards arrived, with reported to be important cargo without giving any description of the cargo to Froppy. So they weren't telling everyone searching for it what was being searched for. The whole time, they also brought in a large amount of heroes to support the society's military Coast Guard's efforts, probably due to the seriousness of the cargo. They started the search when the sun was up high in the sky and didn't end the search till the next day, when the sun was coming up, which you don't just send a large force of heroes to back up a large military operation over a massive search area all night, including a large part of the day, as it would cost quite a bit of money. While there are so many people with all types of powers out there eyeing the sea routes, it'd be a financial fiasco if they respond that way every time. Therefore, other methods such as massive security on ships would be pursued, especially for this case, as the villains, when spotted on the ship they were robbing, did not take hostages. As the report said, they were spotted, then slipped away. Unable to be found, therefore went out of the way to avoid confrontation, so under normal circumstances should have avoided the massive response that was seen. But since it happened, this clearly shows that cargo had been extremely valuable. Then after the cargo was recaptured, they've officially said it was found to be a large amount of illegal drugs that were being smuggled in, the complete opposite of the Coast Guard description of it being important cargo, therefore illegal cargo that they call in as much heroes as possible to find it.
We were able to recover all the illegal drugs they were trying to bring in. It was a big haul.
So a clear cover-up, which we looked through the event. Clearly the captain of the crew Froppy was in had been keeping Froppy in the dark, not telling her what is happening, and when they thought they'd be finding it on a decoy ship, kept Froppy away to not see the important cargo.
We found the boat.
What should I do?
You stay here.
Which ended up being a trap. Then they quickly mentioned Froppy and the two remaining not trapped crew members to pursue the fleeing villains.
The stowaways. Different boat. You're fine. Find them. Go. Start the ship.
Even so, the main force was stuck on the decoy ship in that trap, basically sending Froppy and those two crewmates in, unprepared, to desperately at all costs not let the villains slip away. Which reports came in, those villains had already evaded heroes before in the decoy ship, therefore clearly not pushovers with the powerful water crooks those heroes would have needed to have had to have been brought in to help the Coast Guard over the large water area they were searching.
A fishing boat thought to belong to the stowaways has shaken off a hero agency patrol boat.
We can see Froppy impressing the heroes with her successfully subduing one of them, with them able to interrogate without raising an alarm, plus didn't intervene when they were shown to start threatening the villain, as that part of the story was skipped over, so Froppy never told anyone about this information, keeping it a secret.
If you answer our questions, then we won't have to get rough with you.
So several good signs Froppy is reliable. And when they were on the villain's ship, facing a severe hostage situation with the villains that overpowered them, due to they were unprepared, the villains wanted Froppy to say on the radio they lost track of the villains, which since the villains took a hostage he can easily kill.
If you value this woman's life, then repeat after me. Unfortunately, we weren't able to track down the stowaways.
Froppy, don't do that!
At first I would find the action of the leader of Froppy suspicious, with not trying to negotiate their safe release, as they were basically beaten. But instead the leader told Froppy to not do it, as if desperately trying to get the cargo. But in a hostage situation, it is basically never a good idea to, even under the threat of death, to agree to put yourself into a completely secluded place the hostage taker can have full control over you. And with there could be more villains hiding in the water, the hero's water-based quirks may not help. Therefore, I do agree with her decision to fight back, which the leader was quickly smashed into the boat once Froppy said on the radio the location, leaving Froppy the only one left. Which a villain was so enraged Froppy said on the radio the location, he quickly attempted to murder Froppy, even stating several times he knew she is a kid.
You stupid little brats! I'll kill you!
It's a very extreme act, indicating the seriousness of the situation. We can see Froppy group secured the ship that important cargo was on. Froppy never got to see what it was with how it was not shown in the story, which Froppy would have been expected to describe the cargo to Deku, therefore should have been in the story unless Froppy was prevented from seeing it. We can see that the civilian fisherman that was taken prisoner by the villains, they had the person arrested as well taken with the ones who took him prisoner, instead of separating them, which I find suspicious, due to the fact that the villains threw that prisoner into the same cargo hold, trapped with the captain of Froppy's team, so plenty of time to plead his case. That ship they were on clearly had to have been his, so they could easily verify it with such an abundant amount of documentation with other agencies able to verify his story. There'll probably be a surveillance, and which, since it was morning when they were taking the prisoner away, when at night they captured all the villains, they should have easily been able to ask the villains and verify everything by then. It's not impossible they would need more time to verify his story before releasing him, but with how secretly massively important the cargo actually was, it'd be a guarantee they wouldn't allow loose ends, explaining why he was taken away by the authorities. Which, after they captured the villains at the end, an official person from the military side of things stated the lie about the drugs, therefore most likely someone working directly for society higher-ups' secret operations.
We were able to recover all the illegal drugs they were trying to bring in. It was a big haul.
And he was leading Froppy's, who was told what really was happening, gave a large amount of recommendations to Froppy in how they described Froppy's involvement.
Froppy may not have her license yet, but she's an excellent hero. I'd stake my name on that.
Which the person clearly working on behalf of society higher-ups said to Froppy she performed extremely well and that they will work with her in the future.
Well, then I guess I can look forward to working with you again. Hope to see you soon, Froppy.
Which Froppy, being so great and cooperative, unknowingly had gotten a lot of recommendations directly from Society's secret operations personnel, and unknowingly opened doors that can get her considered to be brought into Society's secret operations. We can see most students' stories from Deku's class were skipped over significantly, only having a small amount of shown of the other ones, even ones that had serious situations happening, which by my future Deku narration theory, rules clearly states this story tries to skip over non-important events due to this story being a verbal retelling of events by future Deku, describing how the world and himself got to the future point he is at, so would avoid pointless topics, but Froppy's work study was shown in detail, taking most of an entire episode. So something made Froppy's story needed to be focused on heavily, which what I said before explains this. The earliest point I can prove that Uraraka and Froppy were a team of secret agents was the summer training camp attack, which is an event that is not too far into the future, which since the school year just ended, summer camps would be right around the corner. But since it'd be too complicated right now to show the details without adding considerable length to this video, to properly analyze, I'm for now not going past that they were teamed up and sent out alone together in one of the most impactful events of the series, so it is highly suspicious. But you can look over my most up-to-date research on the UA Trader and the last video on the Traders in the League of Villains to know what was happening and to piece together on your own how they were involved. That seems to be all the information stored here, so I'll end my video here. In the next event, the first year final exam, it will be shown All Might knows of Deku's original Quirk, so plans ahead to prevent it from cheating. And we will see this Quirk heavily malfunction as Deku's unchecked desires activates his Quirk incorrectly, making this much harder than it needed to be. Also, if it takes too long, I may just release the mostly already done research on the complicated Easter egg in My Hero Academia that I found close to these events I am discussing now, that had required me to use every tool in my arsenal to find the interesting but not really important to the overall story contents, which basically is what Easter eggs are. I do suspect that this won't be the last one. I find as most artists does this in the big projects. This has been a Deer Runner, the Runner of Deer. Thanks for watching.